Hello and welcome to another episode of Narrative Damage, the TTRPG podcast that likes to get authors around the table to play games and also speaks to some of the leading lights in the TTRPG world. I'm Marco.
I'm Tarek.
And we've had a few great interviews recently. If you haven't checked those out already, we've had people like Dennis Detweiler from Art Dream, famed for the Delta Green game, Mike Mason, Sidney Emmanuel from Glass Cannon, Seth Skorkowski, Gareth Hanrahan. So really had a lot of great guests on, so please do check out our previous episodes if you haven't already. We've also had our first actual play is already up there, playing through Call of Cthulhu, the Loki's Gift scenario with Tarek and two other authors as well. So that's a three-parter that was good fun to play through.
Yeah. My first time playing, but not my last. I think it was excellent.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. So, so please do check out our previous episodes. But this week we have a great guest, and it's a guest actually that we, with our sister podcast, Page One, we recorded two interviews in one. Essentially, we recorded an interview for Page One because Kieron Gillen, of course, is very well known in the world of comic writing because he's written for Star Wars, X-Men, and of course his own creator-made comics like Wicked and Divine and DIE RPG comic, and Power Fantasy and things like that. So we speak to him about all of that on the Page One episode we've recorded which will be out in a few weeks. But on this episode, we wanted to chat to him about his love of TTRPGs because obviously when you write a comic called DIE RPG, then that is centered entirely around and is a very meta discussion essentially about RPGs. He's always had a love of these games, I think, and we chat to him about that. We chat to him about DIE RPG, the game, which came after the comic, confusingly.
I mean, I'll be honest, I struggle to keep this stuff in my head straight.
But also, just generally about the storytelling side of that you can have with games compared to comics and all of that sort of stuff. So, and whether being a writer helps you play these games, whether that's as a GM or as a player as well.
I mean, that's what I find the most interesting. I think that when he talks really interestingly about botch roles and when you're giving over control of stuff to a player and how you keep the story going as a GM compared to the player and the role that everyone has together especially in a sandbox game where you've got to kind of pull your weight a little bit. That's a very, very interesting.
Absolutely. So so it's really fun and interesting interview with Kieron. Kieron is just one of these guys that you just sort of stand back and go, how on earth does he produce so much quality content?
Man's a machine.
It's incredible.
Machine.
But he's great fun to speak with as well. So we'll get straight into it. Before we do, we are a new podcast, so I'm going to do the usual begging for you to follow, subscribe, give us a thumbs up if you're watching this on YouTube, all of that sort of stuff, because it genuinely does make a difference. It genuinely makes it easier for people to find us and helps us to continue to grow, which in turn will help us to continue to get great guests on the podcast. But enough of that. We'll get straight into the interview and then we'll be back at the end of the interview with a bit more chat and to let you know about next week's guest.
On with the podcast.
Always ask my guests, what was the first experience that you had with tabletop role-playing games?
First real experience with tabletop role-playing games was Middle-earth Role-Playing. The Games Workshop edition of it from ICE on Crown Enterprise. Games Workshop did an edition in 1985. I was 10. My mum and dad got me that for Christmas. If anyone who doesn't know Middle-earth Role-Playing, it's a slightly cut-down Rollmaster. So it is not a good game for a 10-year-old. It's like ridiculously overcomplicated and I just mean my brother sort of staring at it in bemusement, these kind of like incredibly like columns across, 100 down, critical hit tables, but thankfully nil cardboard figures you could cut out and the maps. So on Christmas morning we cut out the figures and put them on the maps and just pushed them around and rolled dice and looked up stuff on tables and had no idea what was happening. So that's where we started.
And your love of role playing games, I think, is evident in your comic writing. Die is obviously the big example, which is quite meta, I think, and it's became its own role playing game.
Quite.
Is it how did that come about? How did it feel to see that in the wild?
I like the real serve Die is like it had to be published in a classic RPG format in that terms of like the big hardback book, which is just immediately screams RPGs. It's like it was delightful and a big deal in that way. I always think my friend Lee Alexander, she ex games critic, now writer, we did this thing for Wick and Divine, which was basically a magazine issue where basically it was born of trying to work out how to do an issue with Kevin Wadder art, because Kevin Wadder's an amazing like fashion style artist, but he doesn't do internals. So how can we do an issue with him doing the art? And that's what we do, a magazine issue. So like he does the big illustrations, and then we write the interviews with the gods, and that can be the format. And then I was, no, let's do it even further. So let's get our get a load of cultural journalists, friends of ours, to write interviews of us, and then I'll get on instant message and role play all the characters with them. So do an actual little miniature role play event. And they'll use that as a transcript to write up their piece however they would. Okay. And then then of course we'll also do the magazine structure. We'll have the intro, the editors, we'll have the comedy columns, etc., etc. So we do all that, which is fun. It's like really, it's obviously full on big high concept stuff. Anyway, Lee is one of the writers, and she said, Kieron, I think your stuff is most interesting when you do stuff that only you would do. And I immediately said, go sling your hook, Lee. Kind of, because I'm British. But I sat down and actually thought about it. It's like I could see what she was saying. Like that, not even would do, could do is actually what she said, not would do. Because it's that kind of like the level of skill sets that were in there is significant. Like it's board of magazine craft. I know what not in a bad, I know, not in a broad way having read magazines. I know how magazines are put together. I know enough journalists to actually arrange that, of serious journalists of note. I used to play text-based role-playing games in the 90s, like online muds and mushes and stuff. So like I could do online role-playing my characters live, and there's a few other things in there. So all those stuff put together. Now, that's maybe not a unique skill set, but it's a pretty narrow one. So Die kind of came from that in terms of like, okay, what would only you do? Or what would only, like, and the idea of doing a whole role-playing game system to explain how the comic works, written from scratch, felt a little bit extra. And like extra in a way of like, that passes the Lee Alexander test. That's kind of where it came from, I guess. Okay. Also, it's a delight to do it. That kind of there's part of me wishes I'd done it much, much earlier, because it's like seeing people take a structure you've created and using it to create their own kind of entertainments. And it's like telling someone how to make a stage and then see people put on plays. And the idea that you help figure out this is really very cool.
And with role-playing games, one of the things that, what's drawn me back into role-playing games, I played them as a kid, and then sort of, life happened, and you sort of got drawn back into them recently. Is that storytelling ability? It's sitting around the table with friends telling stories all together, sort of a thing. But do you think, coming from, do you think writing as a skill, do you think being a writer makes you a better player or a GM, or do you think it's a different skill set that's being used there?
No, I think it's like a long history of people who grew up as teenagers, especially now we're old enough, as in the first generation of TTRPG people are now in my age. I think they're older than me, so they'll be 60s. But like enough people, especially in the 80s when it was more popular, China Netherlands, people like that, they clearly played RPGs as kids. So they are transferable skills there in various ways. Not one for one, but certainly transferable. The interesting one I found is I drifted in and out of RPGs over my life. And when I came back around 2010, maybe slightly later, I was running a Warhammer campaign, and that was the first campaign I ran after being a professional writer for a few years. And that was so that was actually the interesting compare and contrast in terms of like how I used to play, how I play now. And yes, there's very much transferable skills. In terms of structuring and knowing how characters work and how cliffhangers work. Except one of the most, I think, not perfect, but like one of the more defining things of my GMing style when I run a game, which people do, but I aggressively do, is cliffhangers and endings, because I often have some playing online, regularly have a break every hour. Something will happen before the break every single fucking time. And at the end of session, not that I'm planning it, but I'm going to be looking for a place to cut in the same way.
Yeah.
Where? Okay, I'm looking ahead. Where roughly we're going to be in 10 minutes? What plot thing can I reveal? What card can I play? And then we'll just cut. And if you end slightly early, I don't mind. I'd rather cut now and leave you going, what the hell? So there's definitely transferable, but there's transferable skills from almost anything to role-playing games. That's one of the, that's the thing. It's very, I used to be, I think of people like Ken Hite or Robin D. Laws always describe these sort of designers like polymaths. That kind of like the idea that they've actually read and studied a broad amount of things and brought them into games. And that's one of the things I find interesting about games, that you can. There's a line of one of the characters says in Die Loaded, the sequel. It was one of the characters' mums, and it's like, but he's reading history, like philosophy. Like, how can all this be in a game?
Yeah.
Yes, it can be. That's exactly the point.
I mean, to me, I would imagine, as someone who doesn't really is kind of still quite new to the role playing game scene, I would imagine, coming from a comic or a book writing background where you've got total control over the story, of the characters, over the narrative. You come to the comic to the role playing game scene, and suddenly you've got this element of luck and chance and dice and players choosing to do things which you wouldn't have chosen to do. And is that frustrating, or is that part of the fun? Is that part of the storytelling? How does that all fit together for you?
Yeah, for me, I very much came for a game as no phrases. I like the feral nature of games. Most of the games I play are not the classic trad mode. Like I mostly. This is interesting. Like that's one of the things I realized when I was running the game. That campaign, because I said it's weirdly not a game. It's a Warhammer campaign. So it's not really it's a kind of classic trad in that way. But certain RPG things, which are very much common RPG wisdom, I kind of fell upon by myself. As in, this is clearly how we should do it. So it's like prep situation, not plot. So that's kind of that. So I'm not really interested in laying out a plot, because I don't think that's interesting. It's much more alive as in, okay, if I know the situation broadly, as in this is this character, this is this character, this is what they all want, these are their resources, this is what they will probably end up doing. So that's what you're mapping, and that makes it much more interesting. Because it's like, what it's most like is the plotting element of writing, but you just stop before you plot it. You know what I mean?
I hate to plot, so I quite like that.
Exactly. It's these are the ingredients. This is the material. We're going to find a way through it. We've got this person who likes you, this person who hates you. That kind of like that of it. You can just stop there, and then the players enter it, and then we build it together. Because that for me is I'm not arguably I was into games before I was into writing essentially.
Yeah.
I'm doing my face. I don't think that's true. But the least things that have been brought. I mean, as a kid, I was the kid who made up games for everyone else. That was the kind of, if you look to me as a preteen, it was me broadly making up structures. Okay, you're going to be a dinosaur, and like I'm going to be, you're the Ancalogon the Black, that was kind of what I did. So I've always approached games for what they are. Like the idea of like railroading something has never really been in my toolbox. And I'm pausing there because I'm not 100% sure. There's probably exceptions. But certainly when I came back, especially when it's like I was playing Warhammer for the sake of just playing a game. When I got properly into the RPGs, it was like Monster Hearts, and I read, and I was like, oh no, this is feral. The whole point is it's feral. In fact, in some ways it's interesting that all those games I've loved, sort of not all the games, but most of the games I've loved have been very much like that cascading model. But when I got to Die, I explicitly rejected that. As in, one of the interesting things about Die is it's got a set ending. Like you play this, like the whole middle bit is feral and all over the place, and then it comes back at it, and then the group get together and decide whether to stay or leave. And that is me actually showing you how a story structure works. As in, like, no matter what you do here, you're going to have a story, because everything will be pointed. Because knowing where a story ends gives you power. Not knowing how the story ends, but knowing how the story ends breaks it. But like that's not quite true. There's ways if you know you're writing a tragedy, you can lean into that. Certain story games can do that, but if you can get almost all the good stuff about having a game being completely open by just knowing that, and also most of the stuff for having a strong story arc just by knowing the end, like or knowing what the end is. Oh, we're going to take the ring to Mount Doom. You know what I mean? That's what we're going to do at Mount Doom. Are we going to throw the ring in? Are we going to keep it? Don't know. We'll find out when we get there.
Yeah.
But everyone's always thinking about that on the whole journey, and that's anyway. That's just Die's approach.
I mean, there seems to be, because obviously at the very start of TTRPGs, it was that more sort of structured, and as you say, rows of tables and dice and where you would go and all that sort of stuff with it. But now there are a lot more of the sort of Powered by the Apocalypse or Forged in the Dark, or much more narrative systems that give that freedom to players and stuff like that. I mean, is that it sounds like that is your preferred sort of way to play?
I mean, like mostly. I mean, there's always exceptions. That's it. It's like, occasionally you'll jump in. Like, I really like games, so it's that kind of if it's not a system I don't know and someone's wanting to run it, I'll play that.
Yeah.
Even if we'll never run it.
Yeah.
Like me and my Jim Rosinold, my occasional writing partner, an old games critic friend, we'd have a games blog. We Old Men Running the World, an old Deus Ex joke. And we just mainly write about what we've just played. And you can go through that and see all the sort of different things we've hit up. And even like my itch, I've got an itch page. So as well as DIE, I've done a bunch of smaller things.
Yeah.
You can see there's occasional throwaway. It's a joke game. It's something a bit more serious. So like, I always remember when I was a video game kid. And I think about this now because people play video games and they quite often like their genres. And when I play video games, they didn't really have genres. That's when I came in. Like they were just kind of stuff that happened. If you like video games, you play everything. I was thinking about I was very into various golf games. Why? Because they were good. Because I'm not going to go outside.
Anything to avoid actual golf.
Yeah, hell no. But there's a lot, and I still got that. I'm a formalist. I'm like the medium. It's that kind of like if I've never done it before, I'll give it a shot. Yeah. But like look at something like really like actually For the Queen is always a big influence. I think that's an amazing game.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, but yes, I will play anything.
Cool.
But I like minimalistic design. I like a pauser, maybe not true. Like I like apocalypse. Like I like meaty mechanics which really kick you in the teeth.
Mm-hmm. And at the moment, you are working on the DIE Metadungeon, which you've just launched a crowdfunding campaign for, I think. So I wonder if you could tell us a little bit what that is all about and what people should go and find it.
It's honestly the Metadungeon was when I first announced we're doing DIE RPG. The great Gareth Hanrahan, legendary scenario and campaign writer, dropped me. Since we're friends, he messaged me saying, "Hey, I've got an idea for an adventure, which is basically like understanding comics but for games." And meets planetary, meets a few other things. And the idea being that there's each level of this huge dungeon is about one period in RPG history. So like the first level is like that early 1970s stuff, the Gygax, everything photocopy kind of stuff, Minimac, I forgot what it's called. Then like you got the couple of levels later, you got the 90s dungeon, which is all World of Darkness style kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's basically both a satire and also a history lesson. Like
cool.
not horrible histories, but playful.
Yeah.
But it's also it's one of the great tricks of DIE the comic, as in, DIE does a lot about satire, but it's also a living critical argument, because then they go to, this kingdom is the story game kingdom, and this kingdom is kind of all about the nature of mechanics. But they're next door to each other, and now they're at war. And so you can get to do it, dungeon ecology as critical argument, that kind of stuff. So, anyway, Gar came with this idea, and we said, this is great, we just can't do it. And then the larger Mega Dungeon, Goodbury Rat Games doing this big Mega Dungeon kind of crossover thing. And RLD said, we could do that Gar's idea, couldn't we? So we talked to Gar, we all worked out. It's like, yes, we're going to do it. So we pitched that. It's actually funded already, which is it's done really well so far.
Brilliant.
So Gar's going to be writing this enormous, playful, critical dungeon, which is one of the things that I think it's going to be great to even just read as well.
Yeah,
but it's also like the idea you get together with a group, and there's been really cool DIE mechanics in there in terms of you'll be going back to the real world more. So like between each level of the dungeon, you get to how it impacts your person in real life, and it bring back in. And like so much about DIE is about what are games for? Why do we choose to game?
Yeah.
And in some way, the dungeon is pitching it, in that this is where people have thought games were at different times.
Yeah.
And at the end,
cool.
I'm sure there'll be some kind of decision. So yeah, it's very cool. Gar's writing the majority of it. I'm writing at least a few bits. Like this, one stretch goal got kicked off now, so I'll be writing a dungeon. I've got a few ideas what to do. But yeah, and obviously we'll be part of it. And Steffi's doing various bits of art for it. So yeah, it's like a big campaign book, unlike anything ever else, which is be better.
It sounds unique. Yeah, we had Gar on, and he was telling us about it. It sounds. It sounds.
Oh, Gar's great. He's really smart.
Yeah, and I think I'm also right in saying that you're also, or you were offered up anyway as a stretch goal in the public access Kickstarter as well. Yeah. which is the Carved by Brindlewood, where there's no set solution to these games, but it sort of gives you the tools, and then the players decide the solution, sort of a thing. So, I mean, how do you? Does your writing for games like this change your process at all from writing comics and things like that?
Oh, I mean, you're always writing for the form, you know. Because it's all so.
Yeah.
The thing about RPG writing, especially this kind of indie RPG writing, because I've done quite I quite regularly say yes to Kickstarter goals. Like I've got quite a few of them under my belt now. In that kind of, it's like partially because it's fun, partially because the fact I have enough following online that my name might help it move. You know what I mean? Like it's Kieron's doing something. So I like saying yes to stuff I think is actually worth supporting. So what especially this sort of indie game, sort of, especially the freeform stuff, incredibly idea dense. It's like there's no fat at all. You just like see burning through ideas. I did this scenario for Apocalypse Keys, which is this wonderful Hellboy. It's another open mystery game, and I wrote this scenario for it, and it had so much stuff in it. And I realized, you know, this could easily be 6 issues of Once and Future. You know, like the basic idea was the core driver of the plot was, magic left the United Kingdom in like the early 19th century when the fairy left. But no, the fairy didn't, leave because we ran out of magic. No, the fairy didn't leave because we drove magic away. The fairy left because they couldn't mine any more magic. It's the idea of the fairy, or basically the British Empire. The idea of like, they're colonialists who are just taking magic, and then they're back in the UK because they want to frack magic. So I get to get my favourite like Pratchett-esque arsehole elves in there, and but like there's a lot of plot in there. It's a big cool idea. Absolutely 6 issues of comics. You could do that at the least 2 or 3. And in the end, it's like, 3,000, 2,000, 3,000 word scenario. And every line is really heavily loaded with imagery and ideas and stuff you can use. So yeah, really hard.
Yeah. Do you treat it like you were saying earlier on the Page Bum podcast, that you treat your work for hire thing as a sort of, you said interior decorator, I guess. You come in to do the problem. Is it the same sort of thing for these sorts of games as well?
I mean, you're writing it for them. You know what I mean? As in, like, it's also, I wouldn't say your ego gets in the way less, because it's like, this is material to be used in a game. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm deliberately thinking, what does their game need? What is the formatting of their game? And it's part of that's magazine craft. In fact, the fact RPG writing is so bitty, like we have this is a 200 word section, no more no less. We need a list of 5 things of no more than 30 words. That's like writing magazines. The idea you've got to do 5 captions, you've got to box out, all these kind of modular writing to form. So I've got a lot of experience of that kind of thing. So yeah, it's tricky. Like you really got the discipline, especially because I've just finished an Extembra scenario, which is the new game from Black Armada Games, which is kind of it's sort of detective game set in a, like, imagine a 40k universe, Warhammer 40k universe, but the empires fell and they're trying to have a nice republic in its place and all that.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's good for it's it's really interesting setting. But writing, and I wrote like 2 times as much and had to cut it down by half. Just get the ideas down. Anyway,
I mean, when you're bouncing between your comic writing and your game writing, is there tricks or principles or that you can use from one to the other when it comes to storytelling, or is there shorthand devices, or do you learn something which helps you?
With the game writing, I think I say, since you're writing to form so much, your form fits the thinking. So you've got a load of thinking broadly, and then you get that down, and then you work out what else you need. Writing stories, it's like most of my comic writing is in fundamentally 20-page units. So you start thinking about the issues a lot. I mean, back in the day, I used to start at the beginning right through. And now I view it much more like sculpture, which sounds really pretentious, but I mean it much more like, okay, I've got a number of scenes. Like, how many scenes in this? Let's do this, a rough synopsis. Like, I maybe won't. So this happens here, and then maybe I'll write the scene from the middle of the issue. But I'm not going to write the whole thing. I'm going to write maybe that some shapes of dialogue, a bit of panel breakdown, not much description. And then I'll do that for the whole issue. Then it's like 3D printing different bits. So like, because if I do it very loosely, I then realize, oh no, this scene is now too short. I can expand it by page. This scene is too long. I've got to crush it. So like, you don't write it fully because you're going to mold it more.
Right.
So what you're doing is actually trying to find the story. And that's why it feels like sculpture. You're kind of working it and feeling it around. And then you actually see the thing in essentially a sketch, a narrative sketch. Then you fill in all the detail. Like it's normally like I spend, let's say, 5 days to write a comic script. And normally I do my writing in the morning. Blew that today. So my Monday to Thursday, I'd write 5 pages of first draft, let's say. And that's 20 pages. At least 5 pages every day is my normal definition.
Right.
Okay.
And then on Friday, I polish it all up.
Okay.
So in other words, the majority of the actual quote-unquote text writing is on the last day, and that all happens in one go. And the rest is the actual real work of sketching. You talk about artists about it, and that's because I internalized so much already. You know, I know comics very well. In some ways, I'm making it harder for myself, but it's also like, this is how I keep it interesting. Especially that kind of like, I used to like keep the good scenes for, you know, the meaty scenes for last. No, I just write. If I know it, I write it.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Okay.
eventually, because across that period of 4 days is quite a long time. Because by the time you hit the first day, the scenes which you weren't interested in, you've been thinking about for 4 days.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you'll have a solution by then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, going back to the games thing, when you're sitting at a table as a player, I don't know if you play more as a player or a GM when you're doing these things, but as a player, are you able to sort of turn off your your professional writer brain and just sort of dive into the game and story as the GM wants it?
Yeah. I mean, it depends on the game. But like, I generally think good GMs, and like people who are GMs make better players as long as they're willing to like bring this, not take over the table, but bring skills across. Like, a lot of skills like, you know, the GM skill of spotlight management. The idea, you know, the idea that this character's talking too much. Like, I think players who are GMs know that as well. In that, I'm going to pass the ball essentially. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like the skills which you build as GM, I think are really useful as a player as long as you can keep present. Because the thing about being a classic GM role is that there's more stuff happening all the time. You know, like you don't really get a downtime.
Yeah.
And with players, it's a little bit more back, especially in a slower pace, more trad game. It might be a little bit hard for me to stay in the moment. That's the only downside of being a player. But that's not about being a writer or a GM. That's about my useless brain.
And what, in your view, what do you think makes a good, or makes a scenario good or bad? You know, is it the lack of freedom, the lack of stakes, the story? What do you need to really work?
So it's definitely like the fact I don't play much trad, and especially I don't GM much trad, makes it kind of like something I could treat to say. I normally think situation is more interesting than plot. I said this earlier on, but that kind of like, are there an interesting set of ingredients that can be combined in interesting ways by the players and the NPCs' interactions, creating a larger experience? That's kind of broadly what I think. I mean, like, it's one of the things about, I was listening, actually, the other thing I'm kind of reading at the moment is Stealing Cthulhu by Graham Wolseley, and with contributions by, is it Morningstar, Height, and Gareth Hanrahan.
Right.
And it's basically him saying, this is how you rip off Lovecraft to make Lovecraft scenarios. So it's him going through really, and not even broadly, specific techniques, as in, start with a Lovecraft scenario, change the monster. Start with a don't this coastal town, set it in a forest town. And instantly you get something which feels significantly different, but fundamentally still Lovecraft. And that's the art, as in, you know what I mean? So
Yep.
originality is overrated in many scenarios. Because in some ways, I've actually wrote something about this in Old Men Running the World. I had a theory, and this theory is nonsense, but I quite like, is that all RPGs are either high art or fanfic. And high art are unprecedented at things, and fanfic is it's scratching an itch of something which I really like.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
It's fanfic in the best possible way. Like my favorite Trophy Dark scenario is it's the one which is clearly doing Conan breaking into the temple. And I forget what it's called. It's awesome, but it is just Conan's.
But just a
you know
lift
what I
of
mean?
that,
Yeah. But it's the scenario. That's what the clue of the world is. The clue in the world is scenario, isn't it?
Yeah.
And here is the scenario. Here is a series of. Here is an event that could. Here is fun things which for you to go through and make it your own. You know what I mean? That's what I think. So I don't know. I'm not a scenario guy either. Like, I'm very much like, when I was a GM back in the day, when I first sort of come into the hobby, I'd never played a pre-made. I never ran a pre-made world ever.
Right.
It was always my own. It was and up to the point where I'm a little bit more interested in scenario. It feels like forbidden fruit. And so I started listening to Led Zeppelin. You know what I mean? Like I'm a punk guy. So, okay, I'm going to try. I'm 50 years old now. I'm going to try Led Zeppelin. I'm going to get, you know, and the same way, I'm going to read some old, I'm going to read some, what's it called? Dungeon Crawl classic scenarios. Maybe I'll run one. You never know. You know what I mean? So like, yeah, I don't know.
Trying new old things. Yeah.
Scenarios aren't what normally bring me to the fore, but I'm very interested in what the Gauntlet and people like that are doing in terms of the semi-baked scenario, as in, you know, the stuff the stuff I've been writing. Like, and they're kind of like the stuff that Public Access has, or the Between has, or Trophy Gold has, or Apocalypse Keys, Cosmic Dark, I did one for them, Extembris, that's another one. It's kind of like, they're enough to run off. There's a lot of cool shit, so you don't have to do. They feel like almost the notes I would make. Quite often, they feel like the notes I would make after reading a scenario.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is what I need to run it, and it's, you know, and it's designed for use and play rather than filling your bookshelf.
Yeah, absolutely. And is this something that, you know, obviously comic writing is your main thing, but do you enjoy sort of dabbling in writing stuff for games as well as a sort of palate cleanser or something?
I find it really interesting. I think it's very important for me to find it's like my wife is a poet, so I'm trying to find a thing that pays less than poetry. So I think game design could be it. Joking aside, honestly, there is something weird about. She got into improv too. It's like she's really committed. But no, like, okay, two separate things. A, I must like it. Like, there's clearly something I'm finding very compelling about it. Like the fact I'm doing more of it, and I've got another game I'm working on at the moment, which I'll come back to that in a second. But there is there's elements for the art. The fact I do the itch games, which are even more than scenario writing. Like I did a game called I Must Remain the Glad Cowboy, which I released recently. I've made $170. I feel incredibly happy. You know what I mean? And that's proper fanzine money. This is, you know, there's William Goldman, his book. I think this is in Adventures in the Screen Trade. But he's talking about screenwriters, as in, if you're a screenwriter, you must write something else. It can be plays, poetry, napkins. You need to write something other than screenplays. Screenplays are not real writing. They will kill your soul. As if you've got to do something purely for the art, man. Now, I somehow occasionally think work for hire comics are a bit like that. As in, your work, you know, I think they're incredibly fun and exciting and vibrant. And to be honest, I think better for you than screenplays. But you've got to do something else, which is partially create your own work, but almost like doing something that's just for the art, something that's away from all of that is something else as well. The idea of doing a scene is very fundamental to me. So this feels closer to that. You know, it's like kind of, this is an interest, this is an interesting thing I want to do. And I must, because that's why I'm doing it. Like, yeah, I said I'm doing, as I've done a few more small things, but I'm working and noodling on a big game again. Which is working titles The Scions, but I'm hoping to get a better name at some point. And it's basically me doing. Do you know how much do you know 40k?
Not that much.
I'm not in huge detail.
Yeah. Broadly, it's the Horus Heresy in 40k, but an RPG. With you playing the Primox, who are like the big people, and so basically you're all super powered gene warriors, gods, and you're trying to conquer the galaxy and eventually have a civil war and kill yourselves, kill each other. So it's a big. It's like Dune, it's like the Meta Barons. It's really very big scale. It's running off the Aegon engine, Paragon. It's and it uses cards a bunch. It uses cards and tokens as a way to map the fictional situation. So there's a lot going on with it. And it's exciting. You know what I mean? Like I'm doing the equivalent of trying to write scenarios for it now. Well, I have been for a while. Because normally every time I've ran it, I've winged it. So a lot of this kind of deconstructed adventure design has gone into my head in terms of like, it's not a game which wants you to have a scenario. It's a game that exists at a febrile state of, okay, now the orcs have invaded or whatever, what we're going to do.
Okay.
But it also is a fictional reality. So you need material to put on throw at the player and throw back. Anyway, but yeah, it's an interesting one.
Nice one. And just final question. What games are you playing just now?
I just finished playing Extembris, the aforementioned game. I'm about to start running Scions tomorrow night. In fact, after I finish speaking to you and I write my comic pages for the day, I'm going to finish designing the cards for it. Or after redesigning the cards, I've got to export them and get that. So that's what I'm heading next. What's next on the card? After that, I think Jim said Jim's running a game. I'm not sure. Jim Brosnan, my good friend. I'm not sure he's announced his other game he's working on.
All right.
We'll be play testing his other game, and I hope to run more. Oh, One Ring. He's promised us to play One Ring after that.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah, that's great.
Oh, before that we played Mythic Bastion Land.
Oh, I've not played that yet, but
it's
I've
good,
heard a
really
lot
good.
Of good things. Yeah.
I wrote a big sort of GN tip piece for it on the actual blog. So I liked it enough to write tips, which is high praise.
Excellent. Well, thanks very much, Kieron. That was great.
Thank you.
Well, thanks very much to Kieron for coming on the podcast. I really enjoyed chatting to him about games in particular as well. And, interesting hearing what he had to say about whether being a GM makes you a better player. Because I think the danger sometimes with GMs as players is that you can sort of, or potentially what can happen is that you can sort of dominate the table and things like that if you're used to being on the other side of the screen. But like you said, the other side of it, the good side of it, is that or a good GM, being a good player, will know when to pass the ball to someone else and let them have the spotlight for a bit and things like that, because you understand what it's like on the other side of the screen.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that, as he said, when you're a GM, you don't really get downtime when you're playing one of these games. You always have to be listening, ready, anticipating. Even when the players are talking, you're thinking, right, wait, if they do that, what is going to happen here?
I mean, that's right, because a lot of being a player is just reactive in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
You're doing stuff, but you're waiting to hear what the response is. I'm going through a door. I want to use a skill, and I'll see what happens, and I'll respond to it. But you're not really, As a GM, you have to have, total control over every possible outcome. Be semi-prepared for what people might decide to do, and it must be very stressful, Marco, being a GM. I can only imagine.
Yeah, but you're in control. That's the thing. You have to be a bit of a control freak.
I see. Okay. So you might enjoy that.
I'm going to make you GM a game for us at some point.
I will try. It might be the worst game anyone's ever played in their life. But I will certainly give it a go.
Thanks very much to Kieron for coming on. And like I said at the start, if you want to hear about his other writing, his comic writing and all of that sort of stuff, then we will be chatting to him on page 1 about that in a couple of weeks. So please do check that out as well. But next week we have another person who I guess is more famed for their writing, but is also a big TTRPG fan.
That's right. Next week we're chatting with the wonderful Adrian Tchaikovsky, who, as you say, Marco, is massive in the book writing world. He's a Sunday Times best-selling novelist. He's written, really such a large number of long-running series of books, hard sci-fi, fantasy. The guy's output is pretty impressive. And these are big, chunky books as well. But he is also a massive TTRPG fan. He's talked before about how he plays RPGs and almost use that to help him in his writing, kind of world building, creating casts of characters, etc. So I think it's a really interesting chat about how he blends together those two worlds and how he uses one to help the other. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, and he's a great guest, as you say. Another one of these writers that you're sort of jealous of, because they're just so incredibly prolific at everything.
I don't know how he's able to put out so many books of such high quality and length.
Exactly.
Very
it's
impressive.
Amazing. So please do tune in for that one. We will be just on the actual play front. Obviously, as I said at the start, we've got our Loki's Gift episode up there. We have started recording other games that will be coming up on the channel soon as well. Yep. So we'll just keep an eye out for those. We will let you know when those are coming up, but we're looking forward to sharing those with you as well. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please do take the time to rate and review us, because as I said, as a new podcast, that really does make a big difference and will help us to continue to get found by new people as well.
That's right. And if you want to get in touch, you can do so through a number of ways, most of which I will get wrong here. But you can go into YouTube and watch our YouTube videos. You can leave us a comment under all of them. That's an easy one.
That's the easy one.
You can send us an email, which is marco@narrativedamage.co.uk.
.com.
.com, narrativedamage.com. almost got it right. So send an email to marco@narrativedamage.com, or go into all the good social media platforms and search for @Narrative Damage UK.
No, @Narrative Damage RPG.
Narrative Damage RPG, @Narrative Damage RPG. Right, I've got it. It's locked in now. That was the final bit, the key turning in my head.
Yes. Do we believe him? I don't think so. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed today's episode, and we'll speak to you next week.
See you later.